welcome to Cooking with Mama Bear. I'm your host, Mama Bear, and today we're going to make chocolate chip cookies. Before we begin, you should first ask your parent or guardian, can you cook in the kitchen? So when they say yes, then you can cook in the kitchen. So let's first start by washing our hands. Okay, here's our ingredients and our equipment that we'll need to make these delicious chocolate chip cookies. We're going to need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour or regular flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. We're going to use a half of a cup of butter and a half a cup of shortening, 3/4 of a cup of white sugar and 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 eggs, and we'll use probably about a cup and a half of chocolate chips. And we are not going to add nuts to this today, but you could. For our equipment, you will need a butter knife or a regular table knife. You'll need a mixing spoon, a whisk. There is another probably newer tool on the table, and it is called a pastry blender. If you don't have one, that's totally fine. You can use a potato masher or you can use a fork. And then in the back you will see there are 3 bowls, a large, a medium, and a small bowl. Okay guys, we are ready to start. Now if you remember, we have 3 separate bowls. So I'm going to start with the littlest bowl, and I call this the baby bear bowl. Okay, so in this bowl we're going to put our 2 eggs and our vanilla. So I'm going to start with an egg. I can either use a butter knife and crack it, or I can just crack it on the side of the bowl. So I'm going to crack it on the side of the bowl. Oh, before I begin, hold on. If you want, or what makes it more helpful so your bowl doesn't like slide around on your table when you're working, is to put a damp towel, and that means it's like all the water's been squeezed out, but you can still feel that it's moist. And you put your bowl on top, and then it doesn't shift around. Now these particular bowls have a rubber or silicone ring on the bottom, so I don't need to do this, but I will. Okay, so now getting back to the egg, we're going to crack the egg, and I am going to put it in the bowl. I don't have any shells, hooray! And I'm going to put it in my handy dandy trash can. Okay, and then I got 1 more egg to go. Great, no eggshells. So I'm going to trash that. I'm also going to need 1 teaspoon of vanilla, my secret ingredient. And this will make the kitchen and the house smell really good, and make your cookies also taste really good. Okay, so I've got my 1 teaspoon. I'm going to pour it in here. Now we're going to whisk this together, and the egg yolk, which is the yellow part, and the white part, which is the whites, you're going to mix it together until it's going to turn like yellowish brown, because that I don't know if you guys can see that, because the vanilla is in there, so it's changing a slightly darker color than that bright yellow that we would normally see. That looks good. Okay, so now, it's always egg trying to stick on there. Okay, so now I'm going to put this bowl to the side, and we're going to work on the next bowl, which is the medium-sized bowl, the Mama Bear bowl. Okay, so in this bowl, we're going to put in a half a cup of softened butter. So I didn't melt it. You can still see that it's still firm in the pack, but it was sitting out at room temperature for a while. So I am just going to shake this. Okay, now there's all this butter stuck on this paper. We want all of that. We're not going to waste any butter. So I'm just rubbing it off the paper. Okay, that looks good. And then we're going to put the wrapper in the trash. Next we're going to use shortening, and there's a company, I won't say their name, but they have these cute little sticks. Love this. And you can count over the side until you get to the 1/2 line. And so it'll tell you, oh, it's right here. I know this is kind of crushed. Just ignore that. I am going to cut off, it says 1/2 cup from here all the way to the end. So I'm going to cut there, so I make sure I have enough. Because if you have too much shortening or butter, then your cookies are going to be really flat and greasy. Now I am going to put this, I'll put this on the lid for the wrapper or for the stick, and I'll rewrap that later. So I'm going to put this whole, I know this looks like a lot of like shortening, but that's okay. And I will wrap the shortening up later with this wrapper that I saved. Okay, next we're gonna need some white sugar, and we're gonna need 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. So I'm gonna get my 1/4 cup because I don't have a 3/4 cup. So I'm gonna use this 3 times or 3 scoops. So I'm gonna scoop up, get this closer. And I'm just gonna shake it to level it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was easy. Now brown sugar you measure just a little bit differently. You will take, I still need 3/4 of the cup, so I need 3 scoops. But in this instance, you're going to scoop up more than what you need, like a heaping amount. You're going to press down on top of your cup, and you're going to press the brown sugar down into the cup until it's pretty flat. Move off the edges. Okay, and then you're going to flip it upside down. Oh, see that? Yay! It looks like a little sandcastle. So I need 3 of these. So here's 1. Get a little bit more in there. Make sure your hands are clean when you do this. 2. Okay, 1 more. I could also press this to the side of the container if you don't want to get it on your hands, and that'll work the same too. 3. Okay, that is done. Now, the way you're going to mix this, if you mix it with a spoon, it's not going to quite turn out how you want it. It needs to be creamy. So you can use a potato masher, you can use a fork, but I like to use this thing called a pastry blender. It looks like a weapon, but it's not. It's called a pastry blender, and it's just going to help me mix all my ingredients, which is butter, shortening, white sugar, and brown sugar together. So put this here. So at first it's going to look really gritty and really sandy looking, but then after a while it's going to get really creamy. This takes about a minute or so. Okay, this looks good. See that? So it looks nice and creamy. It's no longer sandy. Okay, so I'm going to use my spoon and just get this extra off. I'm going to wipe my hands on my little towel that I have going here. Okay, my last bowl is the big Papa Bear bowl. This fell on the floor one day by one of my kids, so that's why it's a little bent right here. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to scoop up my flour, and I'm going to level it off with a knife. Now my knife has a little bit of butter on it. That's okay. Or a little bit of shortening. That's okay. So I'm just going to push this back and forth just a little bit. Okay, so there's my 1 cup. Now, if I was really professional, I would have a scoop and I would gently scoop it into my measuring cup. But I don't have my scoop right now. Okay, so now I'm going to level this off again. There's 2. And then I'm going to need the 1/4 cup. Now, there was some brown sugar in here, so, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to gently scoop this up and gently pour it in there because I don't want to mix brown sugar in with my flour. And then I will level this off over my trash can. There we go. And there's my 1/4 cup. Lastly, we'll need just a couple more ingredients. You need baking soda. Make sure it does not say baking powder because they're chemically different and your cookies will taste a little weird. So baking soda, there is a lid or a lip that's built into the box. So I'm going to scoop up more than what I need, a heaping amount. See that? And I'm going to drag it across without pouring it into my bowl. And I'm just going to sprinkle this around my bowl of flour. Then we'll need salt, but I'm not going to work over my bowl. I'm going to work over my little trash can. I'm going to pour up to the 1 teaspoon line. And I'm going to shake it gently to make sure I have enough and not too much. And the extra goes right in the trash, not in my mixing bowl. I'm going to sprinkle this around. Okay, now we can, I'm going to use my, okay. I'm going to use this spoon, even though this has cookie dough on it already. I'm going to stir this flour, salt, and baking powder up to evenly distribute the ingredients so some of your cookies are not salty or don't have enough salt. Okay, you only have to do this for a few seconds. I don't know, 10-15 seconds. Okay, it's done. Okay, so now we're going to put the bowls together. This is the most important part. If you mess up on this, you might have egg bit cookies and not chocolate chip cookies. So what you will do is, I'm going to move my flour bowl over here. You take your Mama Bear bowl that has the brown sugar, white sugar, shortening, and butter. You pour in your baby bowl stuff, which is your egg and vanilla. And then you will stir this together. At first it's going to look really slimy, but then the more you stir it and the egg gets incorporated into the butter sugar mixture, it'll look creamy like peanut butter. It won't taste like peanut butter, but it'll have that nice, pretty light brown color and that creamy texture. Okay, this is looking good. There we go. Okay, then we will put in a little bit of flour. So it's suggested that you put in a little bit at a time, and that's called gradually. So I'm just going to shake in, I don't know, about a third of this mixture. That looks about right. At first, when you start to stir this, you want to go slow, because if you go fast, the flour goes poof, and you get it all over your clothing. So I'm going to go slow. Yeah, it's working my arm. Okay. Whew. Cooking is a workout sometimes. Okay, that's all mixed in. Our last bit of flour. And then once we stir or incorporate all this flour into the dough, we have cookie dough and we're ready. Except we're missing our chocolate chips. So I'm going to add that last. If you put the chocolate chips in sooner, sometimes the chocolate chips get coated with white flour. It's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't look as pretty as if you wait to the end when all the flour is incorporated in. Oh yeah, this is getting stiff. I'm going to use my knife and just get this extra dough out of the middle of the spoon, off the back. You didn't see that. You didn't see that. Okay. Okay, we're ready. Oh my gosh, this dough, okay, is trying to get away from me. Okay, so now with the chocolate chips, I'm going to put in a cup of chocolate chips, and I'm going to see what it looks like. The recipe says use 2 cups of chocolate chips, but I think they just want me to use that bag up quick. So I'm thinking 1 cup might be enough. Let's see. That's looking good. But I'll add just a few more. So I will do this 1/4 cup. And if some extra fall into the dough, it's okay. Okay, this looks good. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to show you how do you make the cookie balls to get on your baking sheet. You'll notice that I forgot to mention is you're going to need a metal, not plastic, metal baking sheet or cookie sheet. And there is a nice cute little tool called a cookie scoop, or I call it a cookie scoop. It looks like an ice cream scoop, and you scoop it up and then you push this little button and it makes this metal wire go across the bottom and it pops the cookie ball out. But I don't have one of those at home, so I'm going to use the 2-spoon method. Okay, so what you do is you just scoop up some dough on 1 spoon, and you take this spoon and you kind of form it into a little ball. Okay, and then you will put it on your metal cookie sheet. Okay, I've got my last one to go, and I can hear y'all now talking about that is doing too much. This 2-spoon method. You can just, you can just use your hands. I'm trying to remain professional. So, you could just dig in there, roll it around. If your eggs are really large, when you touch the dough with your hands, it's going to be really sticky and gooey, and it doesn't mean something's wrong with your dough. It just means you had a really large egg or eggs. If your dough, when you roll it and it doesn't stick at all and it's like nice and firm, either you put in the refrigerator first, which is fine, or your eggs were smaller and your dough is still perfectly fine. So my eggs looked a little large because this looks a little sticky to me. So I'm going to put this in the oven for 9 minutes, and then I'll show you when it comes out what they look like. I'm going to take the cookies out of the oven. It's been 9 minutes. I'm going to put it on my oven mitt or pan. Okay, so they look really light, and that's okay. The heat from the pan will continue to make contact with the cookie and continue to cook it just a tiny bit longer. So they will settle down because they look kind of puffy right now, and then they will be ready for eating in like probably a couple minutes. I could take them out and put them on a cooling rack, but I'm not doing that today. So I hope you enjoyed this cooking lesson with Mama Bear. Don't forget, stay and look while you cook. Bye.